do you actually design a life that works? Not just a career that looks good on paper. There's a lot in this one. Let's get into it. Welcome to Busting Roadblocks, the podcast which separates the biggest roadblocks in business and help you clear a path to success. I'm Charteris, your host and the founder of JC Consulting, where we help businesses remove barriers and unlock their full potential. Today we get to hear from Leo Asprey, who started as a fitter, adding engineering qualifications. And actually, Leo, you have a very impressive continuous education history with business papers, project management, business coaching, and more recently, the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Now, I got to meet Leo in a business course, and I was drawn to his calm, approachable manner. The way you shared your insights, I just knew you had some wisdom that you could share with our listener. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you, Janet, and I'm really excited to be on this program. Listening to you describe me makes me sound very old. So,
experienced, Leo.
Yeah, there you go. So looking forward to our chat.
Now, your work experience centres around engineering and business advisory. And if anyone follows you on LinkedIn, they'll have seen with your passion for the alternative board. You have a story from earlier in your career where it seems like you had to make some key decisions and take control. Can you set the scene for us? Where are we and who are we dealing with?
So, young engineer, did a trade first. The dad said, you've got to get a trade first. So I went and did a trade and then realised that I wanted to do engineering, which I did at night. And then I started to work in that field. I was really shy. So one of the biggest challenges when I reflect back is I needed to get out of shyness because I was missing too many opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so I was working hard as an engineer, but I was sort of the guy that sits in the corner and just does his job and doesn't really interact much. I had to make a big decision. A mate of mine rang me and he said, look, I'd love you to come and teach some CAD programs at the community college. And I said, I'm all right at one-on-one, but I've not done group stuff before. So I said, wow, this might be my opportunity to actually get in front of people, right? And so I did. And I was so sick. I used to get sick between every session. I'd be outside being sick, physically sick.
Oh, wow.
And then after about 3 months, I stopped being sick, and I sort of said, well, maybe, just by doing, I can overcome this fear, right? So I did. And as a result of that, I really got into the teaching side, and I loved it. I absolutely loved the people. I loved teaching what I knew. But what it did for my career is that I started to be more noticed at work, got promoted to like a team leader in the company, and then a departmental manager. And then I did some more courses, and then I became the engineering manager of a large group, and then I became a global engineering manager. And so this career path, and when I reflect back, it was all because I made a decision to overcome fear, right? And we fast forward 25, 30 years, and I got invited to be a keynote speaker in Melbourne at the Crown Casino at a function. It was around for engineers. And I got there early and I went to the room and I looked around and I go, how did I get here? Then I remembered back to that moment where I just decided that I'm going to stop being scared and fearful. And that was the end of that story, right? And so
see what I mean? It's experience. And like that is, you would not believe how many times I say to people the only way to get over public speaking is to do it.
Yeah.
And it's hard, very hard for you, vomiting in between. That's terrible. And 3 months of it, Leo, wow. But look how it opened up your career.
Yeah, and so, sometimes you need courage, right? That's the thing. You need to know what you want, and then you got to work out how you're going to get to that. So that was like a life one, but it took 30 years to come to fruition, Am I a great public speaker now? Probably not. I'm confident enough that I've done it so many times that I can do what I need to do. So there you go.
But I think like with public speaking, you can only get better. I always tell people, you know how you can do those courses and you can do masters and all of those, and you're open to the critique, the better you get at it. And even people who are amazing at it still appreciate a critique. that, you use your hands too much, or you're pausing for too long, or you're not working the room. All of those tips along the way help.
They do.
So where did this public speaking, now you've got all of this promotions from it and you've pushed yourself, where did this lead to the scenario that we're talking about today? How did this get you to this position where you had to take these key decisions and control of the situation?
Looking back, I was a really shy kid, but ambitious, just shy. And so had to make decisions. And when you look at your life, you look at key moments in your life where those forks in the road present themselves. And another one that presented itself in 2012 was a very personal one. I lost my wife to cancer, and at that stage, I was working for a global company, and we got transferred to New Zealand with the acquisition. And so I found myself with a very large job with 40 staff and a single dad, at home with 3 little boys in New Zealand. So it was huge, and so another fork in the road, and then sort of working out that maybe the corporate gig wasn't for me anymore, in the sense that I had other responsibilities. I had an amazing career globally, but that really didn't suit the dynamic that we had going on at home with three kids. And so then I had to reinvent, right? Another big decision. And so I started working for a New Zealand company, and then I became a part owner and a shareholder in that business. And that business, we opened up that business in Australia in 2016. Yep. And then I migrated back to Australia in 2008. But the business was in Melbourne, and I lived north of Sydney, so I created a new problem, which was I lived 100 kilometres away from where I worked. So I had to commute, and so I loved the job. I was the MD for 6 years, and then commuting, like a bus trip, here and there.
It sounds like you went from one corporate gig to developing another corporate gig by helping to develop this company into a multinational company, and still wanting to live where you wanted to live, far away from where they needed you. And still 3 young boys, a little bit older, but still 3 young boys.
That's exactly right. So created a new dilemma, right? Even though the work was very joyous, building a business from scratch. We did an acquisition down in Victoria, quite exciting stuff. But a mismatch, an imbalance of life. And this is where I'm heading with this conversation, is that you end up with all these challenges that are not in balance and not sustainable. So I knew when I started the Melbourne office that I could probably do it for 5 years, but probably not much more. As a result, the health deteriorated. I started to put on a lot of weight with, lettuce and hot dogs and whatever, and not eating at the right times and all those things that you do. And then in 2021, I made a decision. This was the most powerful one. I made a decision that I'm going to get the balance right. And so I'm going to do joyful work, well-paid work, but I'm going to have health at the top of my tree. So I'm going to make sure that I'm healthy, and hopefully all the other stuff will line up. And it did. So in 2024, I exited the business. So I built a succession plan to previous business. And then I removed myself from that business. I sold my shareholding, and then it allowed me to reinvent myself on the Central Coast with my own business in the business consulting and coaching space. I run peer advisory boards on the Central Coast. But what it did is I actually aligned all the pillars. So I had 2 operations. I had a major motorbike accident in New Zealand, and as a result of that, I was pretty much limping for about 12 years. And then I sort of had to fix that because it stopped me doing exercise.
Health's got to be at the top, so you got to fix that.
So I ended up having 2 operations because my leg was so bad, and I did that in 1 year, in 2024. So the boys have now grown up, right? So there's less management. For you. I've been single since 2012, and then I met my now wife in 2023, but we got married at the end of 2024. So now I've got health sorted. I've got a relationship. I've got a new business that I've got control over, which I can manage, right? So getting, the balance between money and time and all of that, the health, the relationships. So all the pillars are now starting to align, And so you go back to all of those other stories that I just shared with you. This was the big one because I had to finally sort out my life, how to get the right balance. And what comes with that is pure joy. Like I'm working with the neatest businesses all over the place on the Central Coast. I'm loving life. We're very lucky. We live right near the beach. And so we've this whole balance thing going on really well. We've had 2 holidays this year already. We've got the third one planned for October. So it's like this thing, a design a life, if you want to call it.
That is possible without having all the experiences that you had. So if you think of yourself in the early 20s, and I think of myself, you're so ambitious. You're out there to go and get this perception of what it's going to be like in senior management, and you chase after it. In your 30s, you usually get pretty close to getting it. And then you should, in your 40s and or 50s, have an epiphany and go, is this exactly what I wanted? Or is this what I thought it was going to be? Because I got there, I got the money. I don't have a life and I don't have any balance, because to get that money, you do have to put in 60 plus hours in most jobs. Do you think without all of that, you would have got to this though?
So that's exactly the point, right? The point is when life happens, stuff happens to you, right? And then it's how you respond in those big moments will define your character.
Correct.
You're right. When I hit my 40s, I was a manager, a departmental manager by the time I was 40, and I was running a team of engineers globally all over the world, had the job, money and all of that stuff. And then I realized, is this this it? Is this what
I've been chasing?
Chasing this, and now that I'm here, and it just consumes you, totally consumes you. And for a lot of people, it spits them out in their 50s, right? And they don't recover. Fortunately for me, because of circumstance, because I had no choice but to reinvent, right? And so the message is that you do need to reinvent, and you reinvent because of the stuff that's happened to you. It refocuses you a little bit. And so if you get a real understanding out of the negative stuff that happens to you in life are your biggest life lessons. And from that, you should be able to steer your ship to a place that really, and if you're brave, you can have it all. You can have a business, you can have a lifestyle, you can have all the things you want that really matter to you, provided you're prepared to do the work. And I did a plan in 2021. I made a plan and I delivered that plan, right? And by delivering that plan, pretty much got all the things that I didn't have in the previous plans.
And you didn't even know this woman existed who would be your wife. You just knew you had to sort out that part of your life. Yeah,
it's a miracle. And so the way I describe it to people, because people ask me about this all the time, it's quite regular. And I say life is full of seasons, right? It has seasons. And some of the seasons you're going to have are going to be terrible. They're going to be terrible, and they're going to be unfair. They're going to be things that are going to nearly break you, you know. But a season doesn't last forever.
Correct.
Right. So we had a 15-year season that was terrible, right? And then now we're in another season, and the season is, it's a nicer season. And so
was built by the previous season, right? Appreciation for where you are now is because you went through what you went through.
Exactly. So if you have a season that's always good, you don't know what good is because you don't know what bad is. So, and I don't know if they teach you that stuff at school.
They do not.
The thing that they're teaching you about, because it builds resilience. Correct. It builds resilience in your character. I don't know how we survived all of that stuff. Like I had the motorbike accident 6 weeks after my wife passed away, and I was in New Zealand with 3 little boys at home, and I was in hospital for 3.5 months. I don't know how we survived, but out of that experience, we built resilience. We built the We built and reinvented who our identity was because we had to do that,
Yeah.
right? And we're in a country where we could do that peacefully because there was no pity party. We just got on with it. The boys had to learn some new skills.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to have really good people around us. And so out of all of that ugliness came what we have now.
Yeah.
I can't explain that. I just say you just got to live life.
Yeah.
You're going to get some hardship, but out of it, you're going to get some lessons that are
Yeah.
going to clarify what you want out of life, and then you can move forward, right? So it's not rocket science, but it's just I don't know. They don't teach it in schools, but I
Don't.
think it should.
But I kind of feel like even if you did get taught it, because you've got to remember, particularly in your teens and your 20s, you think you know everything, right? And you think this will never happen to me, I'll be fine. So even if you did get told it, whether you would have listened anyway, you're just going, oh yeah, that's really nice. My life won't be that hard. And then you get a few years on the board and you go, oh no, everyone has a patch where it's just not great. And you've got to make some choices along the way. And a lot of that is just how you react to what's coming at you. So it sounds like you are very good at making plans and executing them across your life and business because you've decided how you're going to do it, and you got you and your boys into a situation where you're all, hopefully all of you, are thriving now because and as a consequence of you being affected by what was happening to you, right?
So if you want to break it down into even smaller things, so I became a better manager, a better leader, because there wasn't too much that could be thrown at me that I hadn't dealt with before, right? So when it came down to understanding customers, understanding suppliers, understanding staff, leading staff, when all of those things became a little bit, I had a slight advantage because I had experiences that most people didn't have, and I could relate them back to what my everyday work day looked like. I learned not to get too frazzled about things because I was focused on the big stuff. And so all of those scenarios taught me how to become even a better worker, a better manager, a better human being. And
it's even like the recovery from your accident, you would have had to go, I have to recover, I have to break it down into what I can do now because I've got this mobility issue. Then now I get this mobility, I can do this. So I always say that particularly project management, which I know you've spent a lot of time in, it's kind of life. Like you have to go, right, this is where we want to go, but we're not going to get there tomorrow. We have to break it down to the bits that we can do today so that we set ourselves up for tomorrow. And if you can do that well, then you're always going to be a great project manager, but you're also going to have a life that has direction and you're actually going to hit those milestones. So it sounds like you've hit some massive ones. What do you think you, back in 2012, what do you think you now could tell that person at your rock bottom?
I was pretty useless, because I hadn't learned a lot of things. I was fantastic family life where they allowed me to have this international career. And so I just, my wife was really cool. We worked as a team, and so I had to learn all of those things. So if I would give that person a bit of advice, I would try to just say, just work out what's really important to you in life and focus on that because you can't do it all. Your scenario's changed, right? So just work out what is really important. For me, when I came out of that hospital after 3.5 months, that was my grieving time, and I just focused on the boys. Right, so I worked out that my late wife was never coming back, but she's in those 3 boys, and that was enough for me to move forward. Right, and then from that I go, right, now that those boys are the most important thing, what does that mean? We need somewhere to live, and you start to build, you reinvent, and so if I was to go back to then, I would give myself that advice, just focus on that, because it took me a long time to work that out. It wasn't.
I was about to say, because even sometimes when you have stuff like that, it's actually hard to lift up and see. You still have to go through all of that process. And I'm sure along the last, 14 years, you've had micro changes along the way as well, right? You've built on what you learned previously and you've gone, actually, we can push this a bit further. And now we come back to Aussie. And now I'm going to not necessarily travel, but I need to make the plan to not necessarily travel. And then now I need to make that lesson that actually health's really important to me.
Yeah.
And so a relationship. So they worked out both sides.
It's incredible. I made so many mistakes, Janet.
Of course you
It's
did.
not like it's like a recipe that I created and then I got from A to B to C in a smooth way. There was a thousand revisions of this plan. The goal doesn't change,
No.
but the plan had to be changed. The plan had to be constantly under review because I had to work out what works and what didn't work, and it was just learning, those little steps.
Yeah.
So I teach that to my clients. The goal doesn't change, but you've got to work through the plan. It's not something you write and then you put it in the drawer.
Yeah.
The plan is something you review on a regular basis and you're accountable to that plan. And then that's what I learned through that exercise and just by doing with lots of failures, right? And just learning what works, what didn't work, and I had a 60th birthday recently and my boys are all grown up and they got up and they said something. And I just couldn't believe it. The first thing they all said is, Dad, we somehow survived. We survived. And they know because they saw me at my weakest.
Struggle and find it hard,
there was no hiding. There was no hiding from any of this stuff. But they did say, Dad, we didn't give up as a family. We just never gave up. It wasn't even an option, even when it got really, really hard. And because I think we're all on the same page with that pipe dream, it became even more believable for me that we could do something special, But hearing it from your kids, it was quite impressive. So they saw the value in what we did. They didn't like going through it, but they saw that we gained a lot of insight, and they're all done really well. They're really well. They're beautiful little humans. Well, they're bigger than me now.
So. I was going to say, I bet they're all taller than you.
Right. But if you ask me what my proudest accomplishment so far in life is, it's them, those three boys. They're my evidence of life, my late wife's legacy. She put all the good stuff in, and then I had to learn a lot to continue that journey to adulthood and beyond. So
don't you think it's astounding how much, if you have purpose like that, how much you can put up with and keep trying and fail and keep trying? Because I do think particularly people in business, and I know it's different, but people in business, they go, I want to do this, and you're like, I'm going to tell you right now, if you choose to own your own business, it's going to be hard, and it's not going to be all the headlines that you see out there of these very successful people, and if you talk to them, they'll tell you about how many times they failed before they finally succeeded, and how many times they had to get up at 4 a.m. to make sure something happened, so that get up, get the work done, then get your kids off to school type thing. It's only by that failing that you learn how much you're capable of.
You don't realise the potential that you have in you until you test it, right? So no volunteers to do all of that stuff. There's usually a purpose behind it, right? And so you test it. So we fast forward to now. I have this amazing business, and I was really honoured earlier this year where we had some national awards, right? And you got only 1 year into this, and I won the main award. I won 3 awards. And people are asking me, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm only just out of the box, what we do, But I think if you put all the stuff that's happened in life before that, it's been an easy path for me because of all of that stuff. And it's not bragging, it's just that's the pedigree of what we had to do, And so, I got up on stage. I didn't even have a speech because I didn't even know I was a finalist, And so anyway, it was a little bit embarrassing, but I was really honoured, and I figured, well, there you go. There's another bit of evidence on that this hardship that we've had has resulted into something, quite positive. And the best part is we had 8 of our members got nominated for 24 awards, and it was huge. So those guys are just really going really well. But again, it goes back to that hardship and setting a platform that people can maybe leverage a little bit of my experience in. life, right? And so it's not that I'm anything fantastic, but it's a way that there's some learnings there that can be shared, an ability for them to reach their goals. So, yeah, so that's a little bit the personal story,
Yeah.
deep story.
So, I mean, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with our listener. It sounds like you have had more experience in the last probably 14 years than you did in the 30 before that, right?
Even though on paper, worked my way to senior management, you can say that's all great. But the last 14 years is where I've learned everything. Everything. I mean, everything. Life.
Yeah.
I've learned life. And that means when that reflects down into business, it affects everything that you do. It resonates through that. And so I value that last. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I feel like I've got something there. I've got something to people with. You don't have to have a bad story to be successful.
I mean, we joke that it's experience, but some of this stuff you actually have to hear from real people that they've gone through. And not everyone's going to be as extreme as losing their wife and falling off their motorbike within 3 months and having to bring up 3 children by themselves. But everyone has hardships, and it's making sure that you keep your head up and look for the lessons and all of it. Now, you indicated what you're doing now, but can you tell our listener how to get hold of you and what you do in your normal life now that you've settled into this fantastic balance?
I love what normal is now. So best place to find me is just go on LinkedIn, look for Leo Asprey, connect. Let's have a chat. You can have a look at the profile. There's links to my phone number. There's links to the website. Whatever you just want to do, I'm happy to message me on LinkedIn and introduce yourself. And I'm happy to have a chat. And I'm happy to help people. My purpose now is really different to when I was in the 30s in that corporate world, is that I'm focused on helping. My region is the Central Coast, north of Sydney, of New South Wales, and my goal is to help 100 businesses on the Central Coast to prosper.
Wow.
So they'll employ our kids.
Yeah, wow, good idea.
My legacy thing, we're up to about 25. I've still got a bit to go, but the idea is, purpose-driven now. It's pure purpose-driven. So yeah, if you're interested in that purpose, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I feel very honoured that all these people trust me with their businesses.
Yeah.
Now, our peer boards are full. Like I run these peer boards.
Awesome.
I launched the third one. It's starting on the 3rd of June, and it's pretty much full. So they're all pretty full.
Yeah.
So it's humming because people are craving that support for their own dream. And you need to find your tribe.
Yes.
Right. And so you can bounce things off, you can share things. So yes, there's educational part, and we hold them accountable. It's belonging to something that they can see will help them and bringing value to them. And so it's the best gig in the world. It's just joy. And yeah, happy to have a chat and answer some questions.
Awesome.
Lots of stories.
Yeah, there'll be lots of stories, I'm sure. Just scrape the surface. And we'll add your LinkedIn profile to the podcast episode so people can find you. Thank you for your time, Leo, and for sharing your experience with our listener. If you found this podcast valuable, make sure you subscribe and share it with your network. And if you have a business challenge you'd like me to cover, reach out on LinkedIn or at jcconsultancy.co. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What roadblocks are you facing right now?